Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Fair Life with Andrew McKee. Andrew McKee. So, it's been another crazy week of moving, but hey, great to see you, Kurt and Gwendolyn. Thanks for joining, and and Lisa and Sarit. Yeah, hey, uh, great to see you. I tried to start a little bit early today because, well, sometimes I start late, and a lot to talk about, I suppose. But I'm going through that whole moving process, so I am. I'm not quite at the point where I want to rip my own head off, but I see it in the not too distant future. Let's put it that way. It is not boring and definitely crazy. And hey, Damaris, thanks for joining. Yeah, it is very. I guess the best way to put it is I am just packing up everything I own and kind of deleting my past a little bit because I've lived here for so long, just going through some things I haven't even looked at in a decade. So it's really strange. Um, and yeah, in a couple of days, most of my furniture is going to be gone. I'm gonna be getting rid of most of that, and um, yeah, I've already I ordered an air mattress, and that should be coming in tomorrow. So here's hoping because the day after my bed will be gone, so I will need it. Woo! Thank you for that. Yes, no, I am. I do know who I am. I just sometimes like to pretend I don't. Makes me feel better. Yes, yes. Oh, that's a good tip. That is a good tip, Kurt. I thank you for that. Yes, don't want to pack extra stuff. You are not wrong. The air mattress was interesting. I went with thermoplastic polyurethane, TPU, as opposed to the standard PVC, which just doesn't last well and yeah, and usually smells horribly. And but that's what most of the mattresses are made out of. So here's hoping that the TPU one actually works, and we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. Considering how much I'm going to be on the road, I should probably go ahead and start doing reviews of things for the road, travel items, like this air mattress. So that might be something you see in the future. So we shall see on that. Unfortunately, it looks like Alicia cannot join us today. So too bad. She is on the road and just said she really just didn't see how she could stop and do it. Totally understand. Considering how crazy my schedule is, totally give her a pass. But just an FYI, in case you're wondering why you don't see her. Uh, some of you may have noticed the whole news about Patreon, and that's going to affect a lot of musicians and artists. So, something to check out. They are, uh, Apple is insisting that if you set up an account on Patreon or set up a support, support somebody on through their app on Patreon, you have to go through their payment service. So, and what that means is Apple's payment service takes an automatic 30% out of the amount. So, uh, that's going to be a thing. The way around that, I believe, is to just set up your Patreon account and set up who you support on a web page and do it that way, and then just follow somebody on Patreon through the app, but don't actually click support them or give them money through the app. Then you should be okay. But it's only affects iOS users, so only Apple, iPhone, and iPad users. But still very annoying, and it could cause some problems because in the future I'm looking at trying to get people to join my Patreon at at fairs and at events I'm at, and some of them have iPhones, so I'm going to be navigating what to do about that. So, road snack reviews, I like that. That's not bad. Okay, okay, I'll write that down. That's a good tip. Good tip. I like it. But no, also want to give a quick shout out to Queen Bonnie. If you've ever done uh, the Sherwood Forest Fair, you might have seen her. She's been out there for years and has always been a very positive addition to the fair. But she's had some really bad hip pain and is going through some hip surgery. and rehab. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out and wish her the best. Hope that comes out well. So just thinking of you, Bonnie. So okay. Other than that, I guess some of you have probably noticed that the Olympics are finally over. Yeah, I know. I say finally. I mean, some of you did any of you really watch the Olympics? Any of you really big fans or anything? And oh, and hey, Kevin and Dan and Tim, thanks for joining. And Kathy and Jan. Oh, okay, there they joined. So yeah, anybody and Harvey. Okay, wow, everybody jumped on late. I guess I really jumped on early. But yeah, did anybody really watch the Olympics? Yay or nay? I I mean, there's a few events that I wouldn't mind seeing, but I've been pretty busy. Um, okay, yeah, the Australian breakdancing. Yeah, okay, soccer and equestrian. Yes, yes. Certainly, there are a lot of soccer or football fans around the world, so that makes sense. Uh, okay, you really enjoyed the Olympics. Okay, well, that's cool. I mean, the weird thing for me is when the Olympics are going on, all of these pretty serious bits of news are always second tier. I mean, the Olympics are always first. This happened. This person won this medal, or shocker at the at this basketball game, and and then for the second story, it's like this happened in Gaza or Ukraine's doing this, and I'm like, okay. It seems like it should be the other way around, but the Olympics just dominates the news. So in that respect, I'm kind of glad that it's done. But no, I mean, there's certainly a lot of events, and it does have an interesting past. I was gonna go ahead and dismiss it and just make a joke and say, hey, well, I'm glad it's over, moving on, because really the Olympics has nothing to do with the Renaissance or medieval times, right? Or so I thought. Yeah, I mean, I do what I always do because I nerd out and research, and I looked it up, and yeah, there is some Olympic history that goes back to the late English Renaissance. I know, I was shocked too. Now, real quick, I'm not going to delve into the history of the Olympics too much here, but just to quickly set the stage. I mean, everything most of us probably already know and learned in school was that the Olympic Games in Greece started, well, the accepted date is 776 BCE, and it continued on until the 4th century CE, so over 1,000 years. Um, Fluctuated in how popular it was, but very much a big deal and happened every 4 years. And travelers going to the Olympics were given a pass through countries they might have even been at war with. So very interesting concept, especially back then. Well, then we learned that the Olympics kind of started again in the late 1800s and has been going on since. But you don't really hear about all the stuff in between that. And apparently there was a bit of an attempt to get the Olympics going for a good bit before that, or at least co-opt the name. And I found it kind of interesting. The earliest, well, the word Olympic in English, the first use states from the late 1500s. So that's in the late English Renaissance. But it had very common use in the early 1600s. And one example is the Cotswold Games, which was an athletic event that happened near Chipping-Campden, England, and started in 1612 and went yearly for a long time, and then ceased and then came back and ceased and came back. And it's even going on now. But they started calling it the Cotswold Olympic Games in 1612. Kind of wild, right? Uh, I was, yeah, I was really surprised, really surprised. Yeah, trust then verify, right? Totally. But that wasn't the only one. I mean, in the 1700s, late 1700s in France, in post-revolutionary war France. They had the National Olympic Festival that they held annually in the late 1700s, and they attempted to emulate the ancient Olympic Games. And then, in Sweden, they did it in 1834 and 1836, had an Olympic Games. And the Greeks had interest in resurrecting the Olympics after their War of Independence from the Ottoman Empire in 1821. So, over the 1800s, several attempts in Greece to restart the Olympics. Most notably in Athens in 1870 and 1875. In 1870, the event drew 30,000 spectators, so a big deal. But I was curious, why did all of these not start up the Olympics again? What happened in the late 1800s that made it work, and why did these not? And from my research, most of it was that it wasn't really about resurrecting the classic Greek Olympics for most of these events. They were just co-opting the name. This was marketing. This was this event is huge. It's colossal. It's Olympic, and that's how it started. I mean, they started just using the word Olympic as a way to describe this as bigger than the average athletic event or contest, and that's it. The word Olympic kind of evolved because of that. This was just riding on the coattails of the history of the name, but not trying to resurrect it. I think a few times they tried to maybe kind of resurrect it, but most of the time they did not. But how did the name become like that? Well, it continued to be referenced as a huge, big deal type of name, Olympic. So much so, I mean, think about the RMS Titanic. A lot of people don't remember this, but the Titanic was not the first ship of the class. That class of ship was the Olympic class. And the first ship, which is usually what the class is named after, was the RMS Olympic. Olympic, Titanic, and then, to show off the British ego at the time, Britannic, because you have Olympic, huge, Titanic, immense, Britannic, big ego, and that was how they did it. But yeah, the Olympic, and surprisingly, I believe the Olympic was the ship that survived after World War One. But yeah, it is interesting that name kind of just meant a huge event, and it was used. But in the late 1800s, a French baron, Pierre de Coubertin, was attending an English Olympian Games in 1890 and decided, hey, I think we can resurrect the old Greek games. And he founded the International Olympic Committee in Paris, and they held meetings and decided, hey, let's do this, but for the first year, let's do it in Athens. That was novel because most groups would do it in their hometown and try to make money off of it. They wanted to start it in Athens, where it all began. And the Greeks loved that idea and embraced it, and a lot of money came into Athens to make that a huge event. And of course, the second time they did it in 1900, it was in Paris. They weren't going to keep it up in one city, and they liked the rotating cities option. So yeah, that's how it all started. But yeah, I found it interesting that they had Olympic Games even in the early 1600s. So yeah, just kind of cool. Yeah, keep in mind the late 1800s. That was when those World's Fairs and concept were really taking hold in Europe, and that probably had a thing to do with it. I think so. Well, that's also a winter sport, and it didn't start that way. The Winter Games didn't start until a few decades after the Summer Games. Originally, they were going to try to do some winter sports at the same time that they were doing some Summer Games, but especially in some of the cities they chose, it just wasn't practical. So that came about later. I want to say the 1920s is when the Winter Games started. So yeah, but I don't specifically curling. I don't know, but that is a good question. Anyway, I just found that fascinating. I thought I would share because that's how I roll. But yeah, other than that, I also stumbled across this past week an interesting bit of information. for, well, at statsignificant.com, they had a post called "How Long Does Music Stardom Last?" A statistical analysis. Now, "How Long Does Music Stardom Last?" is a pretty good title on its own, but a statistical analysis, wow, that's kind of interesting, because that just means, well, we're using numbers to define this and explain this. So I thought, well, let's check this out and see if it's interesting. And it was. So I'm going to share a little bit of that. This all stemmed, apparently, according to the article, and go to statsignificant.com if you want to look this up, but that the idea that music biopic movies over the last several decades have become so formulaic. Um, I mean, whether you're talking about Elton John or Queen, yeah, it just, all of the movies, it all kind of had that same type of thing. It starts with a meteoric success at an early age, a downfall driven by vice, and then one final act of redemption. So, yeah, not really. It just kind of, I get it. I mean, they're not wrong. It is pretty formulaic. And how true is that concept? How long does fame last? And what they did was they used data they got from, well, from some economists put together a bunch of data over all of these different information and groups and histories, and also a bunch of information on from the Billboard charts, and put all this together and started making something over it. So it's kind of yeah. I found it kind of interesting, and here's kind of what they came up with. Yeah, so here we go. Here's a nice chart that the music star longevity years between an artist's first and last day on the Billboard Top 40. So, when was their first hit and when was their last hit, kind of thing. And this is what it does. So, yeah, you notice that for less, having hits on the Billboard Top 40 for less than a year, which is probably just a one hit wonder, about three quarters, about almost 75% of artists fall into that category. So it's pretty hard to get past that one hit wonder. And then having maybe a couple of hits, 1 to 3 years of success, is 11.5% or so. So, and then it goes even less after that, going to 20 plus years, which is a long time. Having a hit when you're pretty young and then having a hit 20 plus years later is under 1%. I mean, those are the types of people like Elton John or Cher or Bruce Springsteen. Taylor Swift is getting there. Her first hit was in 2006. So, yeah, a couple more years, she'll be in the 20 plus club. So that's nice. But yeah, I've just found those numbers kind of interesting. And yeah, and so yeah, most for 1 year. Then when you jump over and looking at that 1 year, what percentage are based on months? So out of that 1 year, most groups are only on Billboard Top 40 for 1 month or less. Some get 2, some get 3, some get 4. But you notice how it kind of drops off, and just kind of it's a very mathematical curve here, isn't it? Just how it starts off, and it is quite interesting on this. But yeah, a majority of those groups don't even make it for a few months. Most of them might make it up to 4 months. So yeah, so you reach this global recognition for a few months and then probably never again. This brief moment of glory. And the article described it as a Faustian curse to achieve star status, fulfilling a childhood dream only to have it slip away. I mean, I guess I'm sure there are a lot of musicians who look at it that way. I mean, they get very obsessive about their fame and that kind of thing. But yeah, it is kind of interesting. I think, well, I mean, I think they referenced a really good example. In 1981, the rock band Tommy Two Tone. Yeah, you may not be familiar with them, but I'm sure you know the song. It was called 8675309 Jenny, and it became ridiculously popular, but they could never get another hit. A few years later, the band disbanded, and even some of them had solo projects, but eventually the lead singer, Tommy Heath, a decade after that hit, quit music, moved to Oregon, and became a computer programmer. So yeah, kind of wild that changed. Um, right. 56 years in music for me, exactly, and that's kind of how you look at it. I mean, but this is less about being in music and more about extreme fame. So that's why I think it's a little different. It's kind of interesting that way. Um, so yeah, so the concept of it being a young man's game, that well, music, the older you get, the less likely you are to succeed, and they check that too. And the age of the first hit single for artists, and the most common age, 28. It curves around that. Some start as low as like teenage years, but mostly it's upper 20s where you get that, up to 30. And then there's a quick drop off after 30. But hey, I notice, 42, 45, 49, there are some in there, some outliers. So still got a shot. Yeah. Just saying. But no, I just found that interesting. And using some of the Economist data, they looked at, the lifespan of artists who had hits. And they looked at the shortest average lifespan by profession. And musician was, since 1900, was pretty high on the list of the shortest. I found that kind of interesting too. Um, so what I got out of all of this is that people who are obsessed with fame and stress over it don't live very long lives. That the whole concept of burning very bright for a short period of time. And I think that's kind of the trick. Exactly. That's how I look at it too, Harvey. No, I don't really worry about fame, but I know a lot of performers and musicians who do at Faire as well. It's very important to them. Um, Sometimes it's just a matter of uh, an obsession with being liked. Sometimes it's they really just want to be rock stars and always have. It's kind of crazy. Right? Race you to the top. I like it. That's funny. Oh man. Yeah, classic. Classic. So yeah, I just found that really interesting, and I thought I would share a little bit of data that came out, but mm, take it for what it is. Maybe a bit of wisdom with some numbers thrown in. The antithesis of what they do in politics, actual facts to represent a position. But yeah, so yeah, I just thought that was kind of interesting, and I'm going to go ahead and jump into 7 reasons now since it's kind of apropos. Because what I chose was, here we go, boom, 7 reasons music is more important than fame. Right? Right? And I can see where people would disagree with this, but this is my list, so this is my personal belief. Okay, so important to know that it is. So number 7, the 7th reason why music is more important than fame, um, trying to please others for fame. I mean, that's the trap that people will fall into. They're it's less about the art and more about, oh, what do people want so I can stay famous or get famous. In other words, you're not creating anymore, you're responding, and that's a bad habit to start into. And you might even get some short-term rewards for it, but I don't see a long-term aspect for it. Yeah, really I don't. So yeah. Number 6, fame is stress. Music relaxes. I mean, fame, the desire for fame, it's like a popularity contest in high school. It's really just not, it's a big stress sandwich. I mean, you're always worried about what people judging you and what people think, and you're not just living anymore. Um, Fame is a big house of cards in that respect, held up by a prayer and luck, and it's ready to be toppled any moment. It's really, so it's easy to get stressed out over it. I don't think that's worth it, not for me anyway. So let's see. Number 5, fame is an illusion. I mean, it's a rumor that people believe. It's not really based on, like what we showed before, data or numbers per se. It's just somebody says, "Oh, these guys are great," and a bunch of other people say, "Oh, really? Okay, I'll listen to them too." I mean, that's generally how it works. It's kind of crazy, um, and if you buy into it, you're going to go down a road you don't really want to. I love the old story of the Romans where the Roman conquerors coming back into Rome after their victories, riding a chariot through the city through a tumultuous parade. And even the emperor was giving them kudos from on high. So easy to get a big head. But they had this practice where during the whole time on his chariot, a slave would be uh, standing right behind him and holding a crown above his head and whispering in his ear that all glory is fleeting. I mean, I just love the concept of that. And it's been a very big, repeated story for in academia for many, many years. But I just love that concept. I think the whole idea of not getting a big head is a good plan. So, number four, fame is a drug. I mean, it's easy to really go down that path of obsession or addiction. It is, some people have addictive personalities, and so it's a scary thing to go through. You start doing things for the wrong reasons because of the addiction to fame, and that's very much a negative thing, something you should avoid. Number three, art versus ego. I mentioned this before, but and yeah, I think yeah, Harvey just mentioned that a second ago. Music outlives people. I mean, it's really that kind of thing. You're Are you creating something to last, or are you just doing something to feed your ego? I mean, the real thing is the only stuff artistically that lasts are the ones from people that took risks, that didn't do what people expected or even thought they wanted, that did something special, and that's the difference. I mean, if you just give people what they want and they like you for it, for then you're not going to have a lasting legacy over it. So yeah, I really think that's a good lesson there. Number two, so little control of fame. I mean, I you really can't do much about it. It's a lot of it is what other people are saying about you or thinking about you. There's certainly marketers who will say, "Hey, we can make you famous and do all these things to help your career and how people view you." There's some truth there, but that's that whole thing of fame is an illusion. They're just throwing a bunch of lies and painting a picture of you uh, that is the picture they want painted. It's not based on reality. So if somebody thinks you're great because of that picture, they actually don't think you're great. They think the picture is great, and it's important to know the difference. And sometimes people get it in their head that there is no difference, and that's a problem. I always think about the saying of the best way to succeed in business is to either be first, be better, or cheat. And it's always better to be better or be first. And I think going for fame and having marketers trying to paint a lie about you and sell it is more like cheating. I think that's kind of the gist. So number one. Um, right. Yeah, Lennon got it right when he wrote "Nobody loves you till you're 6 foot in the ground." I mean, musicians, I think, have a slight advantage over artists because artists tend to paint painters and all of that. They poets, writers. They don't always get the recognition that musicians do. Um, I mean, Lennon can say that, but he was pretty famous before he was 6 foot in the ground. Certainly, being 6 foot in the ground made him more famous, but I mean, come on, he was one of the Beatles. So, and you're not wrong. Fame can have an effect that way, but I think the point is to not let it get to your head. Um, Dibs on cheating. That's a good one. Thank you. Okay, number one, music inspires others. Um, I think that's the thing that really I firmly believe. Uh, Fame at best maybe entertains. Oh my gosh, I saw that famous person. That was so great. What a great moment. But it was just a moment. Music inspires you to do other things, to be better, to think outside the box, to feel things you might not have felt otherwise. I mean, it's transformative, and that's, I think, the difference that makes it worthwhile. So, yeah, yeah, uh, those are my 7 reasons music is more important than fame. And it's 7:30. I'm a little late, but I had a lot of information, so I was trying to see how fast I could get through everything before it got too late. So let's go ahead and jump over to the Faire map here. And it's an interesting map this week because you'll notice, again, most of it is in the north, far north, because we are in one of the hottest months of the year. So obviously, it's that's where it's going to be most common. But you're getting to the end of a lot of the summer fairs. This is the last weekend of a lot of the summer fairs, and the first weekend of the early fall fairs. Um, as fairs, fairs, some fall fairs would start usually around Labor Day weekend, but as they needed to expand, um, they didn't want to expand farther into the winter, so they started expanding earlier. And that middle of August time frame is generally where some of these fairs expanded to. So you're getting first weekends of several here. Um, yeah, I know. That's what I'm trying. I'm almost there. Just give me 1 second. Okay, okay, almost. So yes, here we go. Let's go to the full map and jump over and go for the. Yeah, let's jump and get the. Yeah, we got it. Yay! Okay, we've got the cat-friendly version. Nice. Okay, so we've got this. Let's see. We're going to start with the last weekend of the Sterling Renaissance Festival. This is the weekend 7 out of 7 in Sterling, New York. And the theme is, well, grand finale weekend. I mean, really, out of 7 weekends, they can come up with anything else, but okay, go with it. Last weekend, sure. And then you have the first weekend of the New York Renaissance Fair, weekend 1 out of 8 in Tuxedo Park, New York. And their theme is Pirate Weekend because, well, as I've said before, New York loves pirates. No idea why. Still haven't figured that out. They love the pirates. Jumping over to Pennsylvania, we have the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair and Mannheim, Pennsylvania. This is the first weekend out of 11. And believe it or not, they've actually scaled back. They used to be a few more weekends than that. But they've lowered it to only 11 weekends. Crazy, crazy, crazy. But the first weekend's theme is fairies and fantasy. Jumping down to Maryland, we have the Oaken Mist Renaissance Fair. This is only its second year, and it's only on one day, on Saturday. This is in West Friendship, Maryland. Then going over to Ohio, we have the Great Camelot Renaissance Fair in Carrollton, Ohio. Now, this is its first year, so I really don't know much about this one, of course, but it is just one weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Then we go up to the first weekend of the Michigan Renaissance Festival in Hawley, Michigan. This is the first out of 7 weekends, and the theme is pirates and pups because, well, yeah, got pirates and pups. I think they just went for the alliteration because I can't really think how else they would go together. So yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, jumping down to Tennessee, the only real kind of southern fair going on this weekend, we have the Dragon Valley Mini Ren Fair. This is its second year doing this, and it's one weekend only. This is put on by a group that just does events throughout the year, and of different themes, a lot of fantasy type themes. But this is their Ren Fair weekend, and just the one weekend in Maryville, Tennessee. So yeah, kind of an interesting approach for an event company. They just started doing this. It's kind of cool, and just spreading it out over the year. When you don't have, if you have a permanent site, or even if you don't, it's a route to go, and it's starting to be more common to just do events throughout a year. And I totally see the benefit, but we'll see if that trend continues or not. Jumping over to Wisconsin, we have the Bristol Renaissance Fair in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Now, it still has a couple more weekends. So, well, a few. This is the seventh out of 9 weekends, so 3 weekends. So it'll finish on Labor Day weekend. But yes, and they're done with their themes for the year. They have themes for the first section of the year, but then the last 3 weekends they don't. Kind of strange, but hey, with 9 weekends, I'll give them a pass because that's a lot of weekends to pick themes for. Jumping over to Minnesota, we have the first weekend of the Minnesota Renaissance Festival in Shakopee, Minnesota. First out of 7 weekends, and the theme is Once Upon a Time. Then jumping over to Washington, we have the Lake Chelan. I'm botching this pronunciation. Chelan. Chelan. Lake Chelan Pirate Fest, and Chelan, Washington. And this one is interesting. It's a 4-day event, Thursday through Sunday. So that's a little different. But yeah, something to check out. And then, of course, you have the last weekend of the Washington Midsummer Renaissance Fair in Snohomish, Washington. And their theme for the last weekend is Mystical Realms, a Fantastical Finale. So pretty cool, right? Not too bad. Not too bad. And right at 13 to 16, yeah, I think you're talking about the Pennsylvania fair. Yeah, they really went a little nuts for a while. I think it was smart to scale back because 16 is wow. That was an interesting choice. Um, and Minnesota Fair, your first one, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, we all kind of have our first, and they usually have a special place in our heart. For mine, it was the Texas Renaissance Festival. But yeah, it's they always mean a lot. Whether it's a small fair or a large fair, it's always a special place. Dog Day Pirates, I like it. I like it. Um, and woof. Well, I mean, I guess you could call it just uh, you sea dogs kind of thing, maybe. Go that route, the whole sea dogs thing. Sure, why not? It's been said, so why not? Sure. Uh, right, right. I'm still talking about Pennsylvania. Yeah, you could lose the two hottest weekends. I mean, it's. I'm. I think. I don't think we're there yet, but I think someday, in my lifetime, we're going to have a fair that tries to go year round. It's going to happen, or at least near year round. Like 9 or 10 weekends out of the year, kind of thing. Approach it that way. And there have been some pseudo attempts at that, where you have um, kind of like a weekend, kind of like a medieval times kind of thing, that has something like that, but it's not a full Ren fair. But I don't know. I think it's going to be they're going to try it at some point, and I will be interested to see how that works. It's not going to be anytime soon, but someday there's going to be somebody with a bunch of money, a bunch of land, and they're just going to be like, why not? And there are ways to do it. I've put a lot of thought into it. There are some ways to make it happen and make it happen well, but you have to have the right spot and the right setup, for sure. Understood. No problem, Jan. I gotta go. I should go anyway. It's already 7:38. I was just trying to get through everything I could. And yeah, this is all going to be different next weekend. My bed is going to be gone. Air mattress will be in, and the desk I'm on, that'll be gone too. And yeah, I'll have a folding table here probably and approach it that way. So I'll still should have a show next week, but boy, is my room going to be bare. I don't think there's going to be much in it, honestly. That last week is going to be pretty empty house I'm at, I think. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of the question. You need good temperatures year round, but the beauty is you can kind of vary it. I mean, you can have the cold winter months for the fair and the warm winter months, and as long as the climate isn't over the top one way or the other, it can't be too warm in the summer and it can't be too cold in the winter. And you can leave off the two coldest winter months or leave off the two hottest summer months. I mean, depending on where you are. But everybody needs a 2 month break every year, just for the for the people working the office to not go insane. But yeah, kind of like a school year with vacation breaks. That's exactly it. And thanks, Harvey. I appreciate that. And hopefully, you learned a little bit about the Olympics and some interesting thoughts about music stardom and a little bit about what's going on around the country. So, and a little bit about what's going on with me, where I become a traveling nomad. We'll see how that goes, and I'll have more to talk about that next week. Have a good one. Take care. Have a good day, a good week, and uh, as always, a fair life. I'm trying to do that more now than I ever have before. So take care, and I'll see you next week.